Chapter 1. Why we forget and how we can remember better. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something important. We will talk about how to remember everything in English. Many people learn English every day. They learn new words, new sentences, and new grammar rules. But there is one problem. They forget what they learn. Have you ever learned a new word and then forgotten it the next day? If your answer is yes, do not worry. This happens to many people. Today, I will share some simple ideas that can help you remember English better. First, let me tell you a story. When I started learning English, I learned many new words every week. I was very excited. I wrote them in a notebook and studied them every day. But after a few days, I noticed something strange. I could not remember many of those words. I felt disappointed. I thought maybe I was not good at learning languages. But later, I learned something important. Forgetting is normal. Every person forgets things. The real secret is learning how to remember better. Our brains are very interesting. Every day, we see many things, hear many sounds, and learn new information. The brain cannot keep everything. It must decide what is important and what is not. If you learn a new English word only one time, your brain may think it is not important. As a result, it slowly forgets it. But if you see that word again and again, your brain starts to think differently. It says, "I keep seeing this word. Maybe it is important." Then the brain stores it more strongly. This is why repetition is so important. Repetition means doing something again and again. When you repeat a word many times, it becomes easier to remember. For example, imagine you learn the word happy. Do not just read it once. Say it many times. Write it in different sentences. Read it again tomorrow. Use it when you speak. The more you use the word, the stronger it becomes in your memory. I remember learning the word beautiful. I liked that word very much, so I used it everywhere. I said the sky was beautiful. I said flowers were beautiful. I said the weather was beautiful. Because I used the word so often, I never forgot it. That taught me an important lesson. If you want to remember a word, use it often. Another important thing is understanding. Many students try to memorize long lists of words. They read the list again and again. Sometimes they can remember the words for a short time, but then they forget them. Why does this happen? It happens because they do not really understand the words. Understanding helps memory. When you know what a word means and how to use it, it becomes easier to remember. Let me give you an example. Imagine you learn the word journey. If you only memorize the meaning, you may forget it. But if you imagine a person traveling to a new city, carrying a bag, and having an adventure, the word becomes more meaningful. Now your brain has a picture. Pictures help memory. That is why many people remember things better when they connect words to images. Stories are also very powerful. Our brains love stories. Stories are easier to remember than random information. If you learn 10 new words, try putting them into a simple story. The story does not need to be perfect. It can even be funny. The important thing is that it helps you connect the words together. When I was learning English, I often created small stories with new words. Sometimes the stories were silly. Sometimes they made no sense. But they helped me remember. I noticed that words inside stories stayed in my memory much longer than words on a simple list. So, whenever possible, turn your vocabulary into stories. Another useful tip is to learn a little every day. Some people study English for 5 hours in one day, and then stop for a week. This is not the best way to learn. Your brain likes regular practice. Even 10 or 15 minutes every day can be very powerful. Small daily practice helps information stay fresh in your memory. Think about watering a plant. If you give a plant a huge amount of water once a month, it may not grow well. But if you give it a little water every day, it becomes healthy and strong. Learning English works the same way. Small daily practice helps your memory grow stronger. It is also important to sleep well. Many people do not know this, but sleep helps memory. When you sleep, your brain organizes information from the day. It helps move new knowledge into long-term memory. If you study English and then get good sleep, you may remember more than if you stay awake all night. Finally, remember that learning English is not a race. You do not need to remember everything immediately. Real learning takes time. Every word you review, every sentence you read, and every conversation you have helps build stronger memory. Be patient with yourself. Keep practicing. Keep reviewing. Little by little, your memory will improve. In the next chapter, we will talk about one of the most powerful memory techniques for English learners, using associations and mental pictures to remember words faster and for a longer time. Chapter 2. Using mental pictures to remember English words. We will talk about how mental pictures can help you remember English words. Many people try to memorize words by reading them again and again. Sometimes this works, but often the words disappear from memory after a few days. There is a better way. You can use your imagination. Your imagination is a powerful tool, and it can help you remember English much more easily. Let me tell you a story. When I was learning English, I had trouble remembering vocabulary. I would study a list of words for hours. The next week, many of those words were gone from my memory. One day, a teacher gave me some advice. She said, "Do not only read the word. Create a picture in your mind." At first, I thought it sounded strange, but I decided to try it. The results surprised me. The first word I practiced was elephant. Instead of simply reading the word, I closed my eyes and imagined a huge elephant walking through my town. I imagined its long trunk moving from side to side. I imagined people stopping to look at it. The picture was clear and funny. Because of that picture, I never forgot the word. That was the moment I realized how powerful mental images can be. Our brains remember pictures very well. Think about a movie you watched years ago. You may still remember many scenes. But can you remember every page of a book you read years ago? Probably not. This happens because the brain loves visual information. Pictures stay in memory longer than simple words. When you learn a new English word, try creating a picture in your mind. If the word is apple, imagine a giant red apple as big as a house. If the word is bird, imagine a colorful bird wearing sunglasses and singing songs. The stranger the picture is, the easier it may be to remember. Funny and unusual images often stay in our minds for a long time. I remember learning the word castle. Instead of just memorizing the meaning, I imagined a giant castle made entirely of chocolate. The walls were chocolate. The doors were chocolate. Even the windows were chocolate. It was a silly image, but it worked. Years later, I still remember that word because of the picture I created. Another useful trick is to connect new words with things you already know. This is called association. Associations help your brain build connections. The more connections you create, the easier it becomes to remember information. For example, imagine you learn the word river. Think about a river you have seen before. Maybe there is a river near your home. Maybe you saw one during a trip. Connect the new English word to that real memory. Now the word is connected to something familiar. This makes it easier to remember. When I learned the word mountain, I connected it to a photograph I had seen in a magazine. Every time I heard the word, I remembered that picture. The connection helped me keep the word in my memory. This simple method can work for almost any vocabulary word. Colors can also help memory. When you learn new words, imagine them with bright colors. For example, if you learn the word sun, imagine a bright golden sun shining in the sky. If you learn the word ocean, imagine deep blue water stretching to the horizon. Colorful images are often easier to remember than plain ones. Another great technique is turning words into small movies. Instead of seeing one picture, imagine a short action scene. For example, if you learn the word run, imagine yourself running through a park. Feel the movement, hear your footsteps, see the trees passing by. The more details you add, the stronger the memory becomes. I used this technique when learning the word climb. I imagined myself climbing a very tall mountain. I could feel the wind. I could see the rocks. I could hear birds in the distance. Because the scene felt real, I remembered the word easily. Sometimes you may learn words that are difficult to imagine. In those cases, try creating a symbol. For example, the word success is not something you can easily see. But you can imagine a person standing on top of a mountain holding a trophy. That picture can represent success. Symbols help turn abstract words into memorable images. Practice is very important. At first, creating mental pictures may feel slow. You may need a few minutes to think of a good image. That is okay. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. Soon your brain will start creating pictures automatically whenever you learn a new word. I remember feeling slow when I first started using this method. Sometimes, I could not think of a good image right away. But after a few weeks, It became natural. My vocabulary started growing faster, and I remembered words for much longer than before. You can also combine pictures with writing. When you learn a new word, draw a small picture next to it in your notebook. You do not need to be a great artist. Simple drawings are enough. The goal is not creating beautiful art. The goal is helping your memory. Another good idea is to review your mental pictures regularly. Look at your vocabulary notebook and try to remember the images you created. When you review, your memory becomes stronger. Each review helps the word stay in your mind for a longer time. Remember, learning English does not have to be difficult. Your imagination is one of the best tools you have. Use pictures, stories, colors, and associations. Make learning fun and creative. The more interesting you make the words, the easier they will be to remember. In the next chapter, we will talk about another powerful method: how repetition and review can help you remember English words forever. Chapter 3: The Power of Repetition and Review. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something very important. We will talk about repetition and review. These two simple habits can help you remember English words, phrases, and grammar for a very long time. Many people learn something new and then move on to the next lesson. They never look back. After a few days, they forget much of what they learned. This can be frustrating. But the good news is that repetition and review can solve this problem. Let me tell you a story. When I first started learning English, I loved learning new words. Every day, I added more words to my notebook. At the end of the month, I had hundreds of words written down. I felt proud. But when I looked at the first pages of my notebook, I realized something. I had forgotten many of those words. I knew I had studied them before, but I could not remember their meanings. That experience taught me an important lesson. Learning something once is usually not enough. Our brains are designed to forget information that seems unimportant. Think about all the things you see every day. You see cars, signs, people, buildings, and many other things. Your brain cannot keep every detail forever. It must choose what is important. When you learn a new English word only once, your brain may decide that the word is not important. As a result, the memory becomes weaker over time. This is where repetition becomes powerful. Repetition tells your brain that something matters. Every time you see a word again, your brain receives the same message. It begins to understand that the information is useful. Slowly, the memory becomes stronger and stronger. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. You cannot plant it today and expect a large tree tomorrow. The seed needs water, sunlight, and time. In the same way, a new English word needs repetition. Every review is like giving water to the seed. Over time, the word grows stronger in your memory. I remember learning the word important. At first, I forgot it several times. But I kept seeing it in books and articles. I used it in my writing. I said it during conversations. After enough repetition, the word became a natural part of my vocabulary. today, I never need to think about it. The word comes to my mind automatically. One of the best ways to use repetition is through daily review. You do not need to spend hours reviewing. Even a few minutes each day can make a huge difference. When you learn new words today, review them tomorrow. Then review them again a few days later. Review them again the next week. Each review strengthens the memory. Many students make the mistake of studying the same material for hours in one day. This is called cramming. Cramming may help you remember something for a short test, but it does not create strong, long-term memories. It is much better to study a little and review often. Let me give you an example. Imagine you learn 20 new words today. Instead of studying them for 3 hours in one session, spend 15 minutes learning them. Then review them tomorrow for 5 minutes. Review them again after 3 days. Review them again after 1 week. This method is much more effective. When I discovered this technique, my learning improved greatly. I no longer felt frustrated by forgetting words. Instead, I expected to review them. I understood that forgetting a little is normal. The important thing was returning to the words before they disappeared completely from my memory. Flashcards are another excellent tool for repetition. A flashcard is very simple. Write the English word on one side and the meaning on the other side. Review the cards regularly. If you remember a word easily, review it less often. If you struggle with a word, review it more often. This helps you focus on the words you need most. I used flashcards everywhere. I carried them in my pocket. When I was waiting for a bus, I reviewed them. When I had a few free minutes, I reviewed them. Those small moments added up. Over time, I learned hundreds of words. Another helpful idea is reading familiar material more than once. Some people think they must always read something new, but rereading can be very valuable. When you read the same story again, you notice words and phrases that you missed before. You understand more each time. I remember reading a short English story several times. The first time, I understood only part of it. The second time, I understood much more. By the third reading, many new words felt familiar. Repetition helped turn difficult words into easy ones. Listening works the same way. Listen to the same English podcast, story, or video multiple times. The first time, you may miss many details. The second time, you notice more. The third time, you begin to understand expressions that seemed difficult before. Do not be afraid of reviewing old material. Some learners think reviewing means they are not making progress. The opposite is true. Review is what turns temporary knowledge into permanent knowledge. Without review, learning fades away. With review, learning becomes stronger every day. Another important thing is patience. Sometimes you may review a word many times and still forget it. That is okay. Different words require different amounts of practice. Keep reviewing. Eventually, the word will stay in your memory. I had some words that seemed impossible to remember. No matter how many times I studied them, I forgot them again. But I kept reviewing. After enough repetition, even those difficult words became easy. The key was not giving up. Remember, learning English is not about seeing a word once. It is about meeting the word many times in different situations. Read it. Hear it. Write it. Speak it. Review it. Every encounter makes the memory stronger. In the next chapter, we will talk about how using English in real life can help you remember vocabulary naturally and make learning much easier. Chapter 4. Using English in real life to remember naturally. We will talk about using English in real life. Many people study English from books. They memorize vocabulary lists. They learn grammar rules. They complete exercises. These things are useful, but there is something even more powerful. The best way to remember English is to use it in your daily life. Let me tell you a story. When I first started learning English, I spent a lot of time studying. I learned many words and grammar rules. But I noticed something strange. Even though I studied hard, I often forgot what I learned. Then one day, I started using English more often. I began writing small notes in English. I spoke simple sentences to myself. I read signs and labels in English. Slowly, something changed. The words stayed in my memory longer. I realized that using English was helping me remember it. Think about how children learn their first language. They do not sit down with grammar books. They learn by using the language every day. They hear words, repeat them, and use them in real situations. Because of this constant practice, the language becomes natural. English learners can use the same idea. One simple way to use English in real life is by talking to yourself. This may sound funny, but it works very well. Describe what you are doing during the day. For example, you can say, "I am making breakfast. I am opening the door. I am walking to the store." These simple sentences help your brain connect English to everyday actions. I remember doing this when I was learning. At first, my sentences were very short. Sometimes I only knew a few words, but I kept practicing. Every day, I spoke a little more. After some time, making sentences became much easier. My confidence grew and my memory improved. Another great method is changing some parts of your daily life into English. For example, you can change the language settings on your phone. You can also change the language on your computer or social media accounts. At first, it may feel difficult, but after a few days, you will start recognizing many words automatically. When I changed my phone to English, I learned many useful words without even trying. Every time I opened an app, I saw English. Every time I changed a setting, I learned something new. The constant exposure helped me remember vocabulary naturally. Writing is another excellent way to use English. Keep a small journal. Write about your day. Write about your plans. Write about your dreams and goals. Do not worry about making mistakes. The goal is practice, not perfection. Every sentence you write helps strengthen your memory. I kept a journal when I was learning English. Some days I wrote only a few sentences. Other days, I wrote a whole page. Looking back at those entries made me realize how much I had improved. Writing helped me remember words because I was actively using them. Reading everyday materials can also be very helpful. You do not always need difficult books. Read menus, product labels, signs, advertisements, or simple articles online. These materials contain useful vocabulary that people use in daily life. I remember reading food packages in English. At first, I only understood a few words, but over time, I learned many common terms. Because I saw those words repeatedly, they became part of my vocabulary. Learning felt natural because it happened during normal activities. Another powerful habit is thinking in English. Many learners translate everything from their native language into English. This can slow down learning. Instead, try thinking directly in English. Start with simple thoughts. Think about what you see around you. Think about your plans for the day. When I first tried thinking in English, it felt difficult. My brain wanted to translate everything. But I continued practicing. Little by little, English thoughts became easier. Eventually, I could think in English without translating. This made speaking faster and helped me remember words more easily. Talking with other people is one of the best ways to use English. If you have friends who speak English, practice with them. If you do not know anyone nearby, you can find language partners online. Conversations help you use vocabulary in real situations. I had a friend who was also learning English. We practiced together several times a week. Sometimes we made mistakes. Sometimes we forgot words. But every conversation taught us something new. The words we used during conversations stayed in our memories much longer than words we only studied in books. Watching English videos can also help. Choose videos that interest you. Watch movies, cartoons, interviews, or educational content. Pay attention to how people use words in real situations. Hearing vocabulary in context makes it easier to remember. I remember watching a simple English cartoon many times. The characters used the same expressions again and again. After hearing those expressions repeatedly, I started using them myself. The language felt natural because I learned it through real situations. Do not worry if your English is not perfect. Many learners wait until they feel ready before using English. This is a mistake. You do not need perfect English to start practicing. The more you use the language, the better you become. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn. I made many mistakes when I started speaking English. Sometimes I used the wrong words. Sometimes my grammar was incorrect. But those mistakes helped me improve. Each correction taught me something valuable. Over time, my English became stronger. Remember, English is not just something to study, it is something to use. The more you connect English to your daily life, the easier it becomes to remember. Use it when you think, speak, read, write, and listen. Turn English into a normal part of your day. In the next chapter, we will talk about how emotions and personal experiences can make English words stay in your memory much longer. Chapter 5. How emotions and personal experiences help you remember English. Many people do not realize how important emotions are when learning English. They think memory is only about studying hard. They think they must read more books, memorize more words, and spend more hours learning. These things are helpful, but emotions can make a huge difference. When you connect English to your feelings and experiences, it becomes much easier to remember. Let me tell you a story. When I was learning English, I came across the word excited. I understood the meaning, but I kept forgetting it. Then one day, something special happened. I received good news about a project I had worked on for a long time. I felt very happy and full of energy. At that moment, I remembered the word excited. The feeling was strong, and the word became connected to that feeling. After that day, I never forgot it. Our brains are designed to remember emotional experiences. Think about important moments in your life. Maybe it was your first day at school. Maybe it was a birthday celebration. Maybe it was a special trip. You probably remember many details because emotions were involved. Emotional experiences create stronger memories than ordinary events. This idea can help you learn English. When you learn a new word, try connecting it to a real experience from your life. For example, if you learn the word happy, think about a moment when you felt truly happy. Maybe it was spending time with family. Maybe it was achieving a goal. Connecting the word to a real memory makes it easier to remember. I remember learning the word proud. Instead of simply memorizing the definition, I thought about a time when I completed a difficult task. I remembered the feeling of success. That memory became connected to the word. Even today, when I hear proud, that experience comes back to my mind. Personal experiences are powerful because they are unique to you. No one else has lived your exact life. When you connect English words to your own memories, those words become meaningful. Meaningful information is easier to remember than information that feels distant or unimportant. For example, imagine learning the word beach. Instead of only thinking about the dictionary definition, remember a time you visited a beach. Think about the sound of the waves. Think about the feeling of sand under your feet. Think about the smell of the ocean. These details create a strong connection between the word and your memory. When I learned the word rain, I remembered a day when I got caught in a heavy storm. My clothes became wet, and I had to run home quickly. The memory was vivid and easy to recall. Because of that experience, the words stayed in my mind. Another useful technique is connecting vocabulary to your goals and dreams. Words become easier to remember when they are important to you. If you dream of traveling, learn travel-related vocabulary and imagine yourself using it. If you want a better job, focus on words related to your career. Personal relevance strengthens memory. I remember learning many words related to communication because I wanted to speak English confidently. Every new word felt important because it brought me closer to my goal. That motivation helped me remember vocabulary more easily. Music is another powerful emotional tool. Songs often create strong feelings. Many people remember song lyrics for years because music connects words with emotions. Listening to English songs can help you remember vocabulary and expressions naturally. When I was learning English, I listened to the same songs many times. Certain words appeared again and again. Because I enjoyed the music, I remembered those words without much effort. The emotions connected to the songs made learning easier. Stories also work because they create emotional connections. A story can make you laugh, feel sad, feel excited, or feel curious. These emotions help information stay in memory. That is why many people remember stories better than lists of facts. I once read a simple story about a lost dog trying to find its family. The story was emotional and touching. Even though the vocabulary was simple, I remembered many new words because I cared about what happened in the story. The emotions made the words memorable. Another good idea is celebrating your progress. Every time you reach a goal, take a moment to appreciate it. Positive emotions strengthen learning. When you feel happy about your progress, your brain creates stronger connections with what you have learned. I remember celebrating when I finished my first English book. It was not a difficult book, but it was an important achievement for me. The happiness I felt made the experience unforgettable. That positive memory encouraged me to continue learning. Sometimes learners feel frustrated when they make mistakes. This is normal, but try not to let frustration stop you. Instead, view mistakes as part of the learning process. Every mistake teaches you something valuable. When you learn from a mistake, the lesson often becomes easier to remember. I made many mistakes while learning English. Some of them were embarrassing, but those moments often taught me the most. Because the experiences were emotional, I remembered the corrections very clearly. Another helpful technique is creating emotional stories with new vocabulary. If you learn several new words, place them into a story that makes you laugh, feel surprised, or feel curious. Emotional stories are much easier to remember than plain word lists. Remember, learning English is not only about logic and study. It is also about feelings, experiences, and personal connections. The more meaning you give to the words you learn, the more likely you are to remember them. Connect vocabulary to your life. Connect it to your dreams, your memories, and your emotions. In the next chapter, we will talk about one of the most effective memory tools for English learners: creating habits that make remembering English automatic. Chapter 6. Creating habits that make remembering English automatic. Many people think success comes from motivation. They believe they must feel excited every day to learn. But motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel excited, other days you feel tired. Habits are different. Habits help you continue learning even when you do not feel motivated. Let me tell you a story. When I first started learning English, I studied only when I felt inspired. Some days I studied for hours. Other days I did nothing. At first I thought this was enough, but after a few months, I noticed my progress was very slow. I kept forgetting words and grammar rules. Then I decided to create a simple habit. I would study English for just 15 minutes every day. It did not matter if I felt motivated or not. I would do it anyway. That small habit changed everything. Our brains love routines. When we do something repeatedly, it becomes easier over time. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably do not need to remind yourself every day. It has become a habit. Learning English can become the same way. When English becomes part of your daily routine, remembering becomes much easier. The first step is keeping your habits simple. Many people make the mistake of setting huge goals. They decide to study for 3 hours every day. They feel excited for a few days, but then they become tired and quit. Small habits are often more successful. Even 10 or 15 minutes a day can produce excellent results. I started with a very simple habit. Every morning, I learned 3 new English words. That was all. It took only a few minutes. Because the habit was easy, I continued doing it every day. After a year, I had learned more than 1,000 words. Small actions created big results. Another useful habit is reading a little English every day. You do not need to read an entire book. Even 1 page can help. The important thing is consistency. Daily reading keeps English fresh in your mind and strengthens your memory. I remember reading short articles every morning. Some were about travel. Some were about science. Some were about daily life. At first, I understood only part of what I read, but because I practiced every day, my understanding improved. The words I saw repeatedly became easier to remember. Listening can also become a habit. Listen to English while walking, exercising, or doing household tasks. Even a few minutes of listening each day can make a big difference. Regular exposure helps your brain become familiar with the language. When I started listening to English podcasts daily, I noticed something amazing. Words I had studied before began appearing naturally in conversations. Hearing them repeatedly helped me remember them much better. It felt like the language was becoming part of my life. Writing is another excellent habit. Keep a small notebook or digital journal. Write a few sentences every day. Describe your day, your plans, or your thoughts. Daily writing helps you use vocabulary actively instead of simply recognizing it. I remember writing a few sentences every evening before bed. Some days my writing was simple. Other days I wrote longer paragraphs. The important thing was consistency. Over time, I became more comfortable expressing myself in English. Speaking should also become a habit. Many learners wait until they feel confident before speaking. This often delays progress. Start speaking now, even if your English is simple. Speak to yourself, talk with friends, or practice online. Every conversation strengthens your memory. At first, I felt nervous when speaking English. I worried about making mistakes. But because I practiced regularly, my confidence grew. Speaking became easier, and the words stayed in my memory longer because I was actively using them. Another powerful habit is reviewing old material. Many learners focus only on new information. They forget to review what they learned before. A few minutes of review each day can prevent forgetting and strengthen long-term memory. I created a weekly review habit. Every Sunday, I looked through my notes from the previous week. I reviewed vocabulary, expressions, and grammar points. This simple routine helped me remember much more than before. One secret to building habits is linking them to activities you already do. For example, if you drink tea every morning, review vocabulary while drinking tea. If you travel to work, listen to English during the journey. Connecting English to existing habits makes learning easier. I linked my English practice to breakfast. Every morning, while eating breakfast, I reviewed vocabulary cards. Soon it became automatic. I no longer needed to remind myself. The habit happened naturally. Tracking your progress can also help. Mark each day you practice English on a calendar. Seeing your progress can motivate you to continue. Every mark becomes proof that you are moving forward. I used a simple calendar to track my learning. Every day I practiced, I placed a small check mark on the date. After a few weeks, I saw a long chain of successful days. I did not want to break that chain. It encouraged me to keep going. Remember, habits do not need to be perfect. Some days, you may practice for an hour. Other days, you may practice for only 5 minutes. That is okay. The goal is consistency, not perfection. Small daily actions are stronger than occasional bursts of effort. Learning English becomes much easier when it becomes part of your lifestyle. Instead of thinking about studying English, you simply live with English every day. The language becomes familiar. The words become natural. Memory improves because English is no longer something separate from your life. In the next chapter, we will bring everything together and discover how to build a powerful system that helps you remember English for years to come. Chapter 7. Building a system to remember English for life. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something very important. We will bring together everything we have learned so far. We will talk about how to build a complete system for remembering English. Learning English is not about finding one magic trick. It is about combining good habits, smart techniques, and regular practice. When these things work together, remembering English becomes much easier. Let me tell you a story. When I first started learning English, I searched for a secret method. I wanted one technique that would help me remember everything. I tried many different approaches. Some worked for a short time, while others did not help much. Then I realized something important. Successful learners do not rely on one method. They build a system. They combine several good habits and use them consistently. Think about building a house. A strong house needs many parts. It needs walls, windows, doors, and a roof. If one part is missing, the house is weaker. Learning English works the same way. Your memory becomes stronger when different techniques work together. The first part of your system is daily exposure. You need to see and hear English regularly. This can be through reading, listening, watching videos, or having conversations. Daily exposure reminds your brain that English is important. I remember making English part of my everyday life. I listened to English during my free time. I read simple articles every morning. I watched English videos in the evening. Because English was always around me, I stopped forgetting as much. The language became familiar. The second part of your system is repetition. We talked about this before, but it is worth repeating. Every new word needs multiple encounters. Do not expect to remember something after seeing it only once. Review it again and again. When I learned new vocabulary, I reviewed it the next day, a few days later, and again the following week. This simple routine helped move words from short-term memory into long-term memory. Repetition became one of the most important parts of my learning system. The third part is using mental pictures and associations. Every time you learn a new word, create a strong image or connect it to something you already know. This gives your brain another way to remember the information. For example, if you learn the word bridge, imagine a huge bridge made of books crossing a river. The unusual image makes the word more memorable. Associations turn ordinary vocabulary into something interesting and easier to recall. The fourth part is real-life usage. Knowledge becomes stronger when you use it. Speak English, write in English, and think in English whenever possible. Active use tells your brain that the information is valuable. I noticed that words I used during conversations stayed in my memory much longer than words I only read in a book. Real-life practice transformed passive knowledge into active knowledge. The words became part of my everyday vocabulary. The fifth part is emotional connection. Connect English to your experiences, dreams, and goals. The more meaningful the language becomes, the easier it is to remember. Emotional memories are often stronger than ordinary memories. When I learned words connected to my personal goals, I remembered them more easily. Those words felt important because they helped me move towards something I cared about. Meaning creates stronger memory. Another important part of your system is organization. Keep your notes in one place. Write down new words, useful phrases, and grammar rules. Organized information is easier to review and remember. I kept a notebook for all my English learning. Whenever I learned something new, I wrote it down. Later, I could quickly review my notes. This simple habit saved time and helped me remember more. Patience is also essential. Many learners become frustrated because they forget words. They think forgetting means they are failing. But forgetting is a normal part of learning. Even successful learners forget things. The difference is that they review and continue practicing. I used to feel disappointed when I forgot vocabulary. Later, I understood that forgetting was not the end of learning. It was simply a signal that I needed more review. Once I accepted this, learning became much less stressful. Consistency is another key ingredient. Small daily actions produce powerful results over time. Learning for 15 minutes every day is often more effective than studying for 5 hours once a week. I learned this lesson through experience. Whenever I practiced a little each day, my progress was steady. Whenever I stopped for long periods, I forgot many things. Consistency kept me moving forward. It is also important to enjoy the process. Learning English should not feel like a punishment. Find activities you enjoy. Read topics that interest you. Watch videos you like. Listen to music you enjoy. The more fun learning becomes, the easier it is to continue. I discovered that learning was much easier when I focused on things I enjoyed. I liked reading stories, watching videos, and learning about new cultures. Because I enjoyed the process, I stayed motivated for a long time. Remember that every learner's journey is different. Do not compare yourself to others. Some people learn quickly. Others learn more slowly. What matters is your own progress. Focus on becoming a little better each day. There were times when I compared myself to other learners. It only made me feel discouraged. Later, I realized that my only competition was the person I was yesterday. Once I focused on my own growth, I enjoyed learning much more. As we reach the end of this journey, remember the main idea. You do not need a perfect memory to learn English. You need a good system. Use repetition. Create mental pictures. Connect words to emotions. Practice daily. Review regularly. Use English in real life. Stay patient and consistent. Over time, these habits will work together. Words will stay in your memory longer. Speaking will become easier. Reading will feel more natural. Little by little, English will become part of who you are. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, every word you learn, every sentence you read, and every conversation you have brings you one step closer to your goal. Keep going, keep practicing, and never stop learning. Your success is built one day at a time.